How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Bill, and in today's video we are messing with the Bronco suspension once again. Now, if you're not familiar with the build, currently there is a 4-inch lift. I've got the BDS upper control arms and the zone lift, which is 4 inches, and this is 4 inches over non-Sasquatch. This is a black diamond, so it's 4 inches over that. It would be 3 inches over Sasquatch. And what the zone lift is, it's 2 inches of puck lift and 2 inches of perch lift. So it's a little bit of both. If we take a look and see, I don't know how well you can see that. Angles aren't horrible. They're not great, but they're not horrible. Haven't had any issues with it. I'm happy with the ride. I did notice after doing the perch lift a little bit, it did stiffen the ride just a bit, but not horribly, and I like the ride. Now, the problem is, now that I've been running it a while, when I first put it on, I had the spare tire delete, and now that I've switched back to running 5 tires, and I have this big, heavy spare on the back, it seems like it's squatting a bit. It definitely has a little bit of squat towards the back, and I just did some measurements, and from the tire to the fender, it's about 8 inches in the front and about 7 inches in the back. And then from ground to center of the fender, it's 41 in the back and 42 up front. So yeah, no wonder I noticed some squat. What I wanted to do was switch to coilover. I've been on the fence about which kind, and then these Eiback Pro Truck Coilover 2.0's adjustables came out. As soon as they became available, I snatched up a pair. I was like, heck yeah, I want a pair of those. They go up to 4 inches, which is what I have. They're adjustable, so if I do end up with a little bit of squat or something I don't like, I can adjust them. So I went ahead and grabbed them. However, that's been several months and they've been just sitting here in the garage. I've been having a hard time getting the motivation for swapping out a 4-inch lift for a separate 4-inch lift. But I keep hearing good reviews about these, reviews about the ride quality. I keep hearing great reviews about the ride quality. Everybody seems to be happy with them. And the more and more I look at this bit of squat, the more and more it bothers me. So I think it's time to go ahead, bite the bullet, and swap these out. Now, if this is your first time touching your suspension, it's going to be a little bit harder to swap out the front ones, because if you haven't done any suspension work on your Bronco yet, it's not that hard. It can be a bit intimidating at first, but it's not that hard. The rears are super easy to take care of. The front's a little more difficult, and especially if it's your first time doing it in the front, there's some things that can make it difficult, which I'll get into when we get there. Like I said, I've done this a few times on this Bronco alone. I started with the 4-wheel parts 2-inch leveling lift when that came out, because that was the only thing available at the time. And then went from that to the 4-inch lift, which I've been running over a year now. I've done a couple other lifts on other Broncos. So I've done a few of these, so hopefully it shouldn't take that long. And some of the things we've gotten knocked out of the way to make this easier going down the line. But with that all said, I'm going to go ahead. We're going to get started up front, get this jacked up, put some chalk the wheels, get everything ready, and then we'll start digging into it. Okay, so first things first, there's a 10mm bolt right here. Need to loosen that up. Alright, just take that off so your wiring can hang loose, and will move independently of your knuckle, because your knuckle is going to come loose. Now, you don't have to disassemble the brakes at all, don't have to take the caliper off, none of that. That all could stay nice and tight. What you do have to do is loosen up this bolt here, your axle bolt, and that is going to be a 35mm. All right, so I got everything put back together. I looked up the torques. The top bolts are 41 foot-pounds. The upper control arm bolt is 46 foot-pounds, the same with the tie rod end, 46. So those are all tight. This axle nut is 220 foot-pounds. Yeah, if you're working by yourself, you don't have somebody to hold the brakes, or if your brakes aren't that good, I just wedged a crowbar in there to put some leverage on the lug nut so I could actually get that on there, but that's all tight. So everything's put back together. It looks like we got, I was wondering, this does seem much thicker than the OEM down at the bottom, but I wasn't sure if there would be any issues with room with the collar or anything rubbing up, hitting the Bronc Buster brace there, and no issues. I do need to go get my torque stripe and hit these bolts so I can make sure that they're not loosening. But other than that, this side is done. I'm gonna go ahead. The other side, passenger or driver side, is the same exact as this side. So unless anything interesting happens on that side, I'm just going to go ahead and get this wrapped up, knock the other side out, and then like this. And then we'll go ahead and switch to doing the back in 3, 2, 1, go. All right, so passenger side is done, or driver side is done now as well. On the front, I have not touched the back yet. But like I said, these were not quite extended all the way. So it looks like we ended up with about 3 inches of lift going by the settings that they were on, which brings us down to exactly 7 inches now of gap, which does make this look nice and level now. And well, on the camera it still looks squatted a little bit, but in person it does look flat. And every time I've ever worked on the front suspension, once you set it down, it still settles a little bit, so it might settle even a little bit more. So currently it's set at about 3 inches of lift instead of the full 4 inches on the back. I'm just going to go with what they have it preset at, which is what I went with on the front. I don't know if that's 3 inches. I'm going to guess it's probably about 2.5 inches on the back, because there's a bit more room to go, but I might end up having to crank the back up a little bit or bring the front down. But I think that's actually perfect amount of gap right there. Comes down a little bit more, that's perfect. It's not going to rub or anything. I'll double check. But yeah, let's take care of the back now and see how these things run. See how these things ride. I still need to torque all my lug nuts, so I'll get those taken care of and then pull this up a little bit further so we have room to work around in the back. Okay, so got the front wheels chalked, got jack stands, and then I just got the jack underneath the rear differential to support that. It's basically all the way down. So to take the rear shocks out, it's pretty easy. There's just one big bolt right here and nut that's got to come out. I don't know what size those are. I'll figure that out. And then the top side, just like the front, there's 3 bolts. The OEM ones are 15 millimeters. I think the ones that are on here are 17. Now, sometimes these liners are easy to come out, sometimes they're not. Depends on these little fasteners, like right there. You see the whole thing's turning. What it's supposed to do is just kind of hold that in the center, screws out, but you can't put any pressure on it to screw it out, otherwise you just push it right back in. Now most of these don't work the way they're supposed to. You can try to wedge them out, but be careful. Stuff back there is very thin. You can bend that. I did order some replacements for these to try out. They have not gotten in yet, so I don't want to break them out, but I don't feel like sitting here for hours fighting with these things. And so for these, any directions I've seen said you take the entire liner out. All you really need to do is take this and this fastener off of there, and you just kind of peel this back and get to it. I would get some tape or something to put along this edge, because it's pretty sharp, this plastic edge, and you're rubbing your hand up against it, or wear some gloves or something. Otherwise you will scrape your hands up, or if you don't want to deal with that, you could take the liner out. Just if it's a good day, these will all come out super easy and you can just drop this down. If it's not a good day, then you might spend hours or not hours, but you might spend way too long fighting these. So let's see how any of these come out and see what we're gonna fight with today or not. But 1, 2, 3 bolts there. I won't bore you with making you watch me back off 3 bolts that are going to take a while because you get a full movement. I said you get a little bit more movement if you take this whole thing off, but I don't feel like fighting with these things, and you don't get that much improvement by taking the whole thing out. So, and I just put a strap up to the door handle into there to kind of hold that back out of the way, and I'll just work on getting those off. Alright, so the rear, it had the top hat on it, and then it also had an additional spacer, and that was what gave it the lift. It did not use a perch collar in the rear like it did in the front. The front had the perch collar adjustment. This just had the top hat plus the additional spacer on it. So if we line these up, it looks like the Eibach is shorter at the settings, but it still has half the span that it can go. I don't know what it's currently set at, but it's just how it came from the factory. It seems like it's set shorter than the front. I don't know, but I'm just going to go ahead and put it on, and then we can see how it sets. And then once I'll go for some drives, let everything settle, do some more measurements, and then see what we have to adjust. But I have a feeling we're gonna have to raise these up a little bit in the back. But these go in just like that came out. Got 3 bolts. All right, so we are done. Everything's back down on the ground. It is looking level. It's actually a little higher in the back. Just measured everything. It is 7 inches wheel to fender and 41 inches in the front, and then it was 7 1/4 in the, or 7 1/2 and 41 1/2 in the back. So it's about a 1/2 inch, but I just lowered the back, so the front's probably settled a little bit more. I would go take a drive, see how it feels. It's dark and rainy out, so I'll wait till tomorrow and during the sunlight, and we'll see how Mr. Ducky likes the ride. But I just want to go ahead, drive around real quick, see how it feels, hit some bumps and try to make sure everything settles, and then I'll remeasure. But yeah, I mean, pretty typical install. This last rear one fought me. I don't know if it's probably just because I'm getting tired, but that I could not get those top bolts started. But yeah, once I did, it worked. It was fighting me getting that first top bolt started. But all done, everything's torqued down, everything's put together. I'm gonna go for a quick drive, and then tomorrow when it's a little bit sunny out, I'll go for that same drive that I did this morning with the duck and see if there's any noticeable difference there with that or not. All right, so it is the next day. Took some drives. Thing drives good. It's weird because feels stiffer, but also softer. It's hard to explain, but like going around corners and stuff like that, it does feel a bit tighter. It doesn't feel like there's as much roll, and it's stiffer, but like it's not floaty, but it recovers kind of soft. So the ride feels a little bit softer, but not bouncy, but not like floaty, but it's stiffer. So it's, I don't know, it's hard to explain. I mean, the ride feels good on it. Done a bit of settling. The front is at 6 inches now from here to here, and the back is at 7 inches. So now we kind of have the factory raked back, and I didn't adjust anything. So really it's about 2 inches of lift over stock currently, well, about 2.5 inches overall. Still got room that I can go up a bit. So I mean, yeah, if I want to put bigger tires on there, which we might eventually do, we got room. We can raise it up some. We could actually even bring it down some if I wanted to, but I think where it's at is a good height. It's not super lifted to where there's excessive space between the wheels and tire, or between the wheel well and the tire, between the fender flare and the tire, but it's a plenty for clearance. I said it was starting to squat a little bit in the back. That squat is gone. We actually have a little bit of the factory rake back. Yeah, I think it looks good. Definitely rides good. I need to spend some more time driving, but I mean, first impressions, it's weird to describe something being stiffer and softer at the same time, but it's like Bronco itself feels a little stiffer in movements, but the recovery from the impacts is softer, if that makes any sense. But it definitely feels good to ride in. I'll give it some time, see how it wears over time. But yeah, for the price, you're not gonna find coilover lift kit. I do have the aftermarket BDS upper control arms. Eibach says you don't need aftermarket control arms. You could go up to 4 inches using the factory control arms without issues. You know, you might get into some alignment issues at that point, I would think. But, you know, they say you could do it with the aftermarket ones. I know if I cranked it up or anything, I shouldn't have any issues. But yeah, I'm gonna ride around with it a bit more, see if it settles anymore, see how I like it, and maybe crank it down or crank it up depending on where it's at. And I'll let you know. Yeah, maybe I'll do a video just changing the height settings just so you can see the process and we can see how easy or hard it is. I don't know. It seems like it is something that would be much easier if you take the wheels off to do, because that spanner wrench isn't going to get in there too easily. And I suppose on the front, if you could turn the wheels and get to access to those. The rear ones, you could probably get to a little bit in the front, but it'd probably be just easier to take the wheels off to do that. But anyway, all that said, I'm happy with them. Kind of mad I waited so long to install them. Yeah, but I finally did get them installed. I actually didn't lift the Bronco in this video. I actually lowered it a bit for a change, but I was lowering it off of the maxed out 4 inches. So I can go back to that same height with this, or I can even go further down depending on where we want to go. I think where it's set at for this size wheel and tire combo, I think it's perfect. If I want to go up a tire size or two, I can lift the Bronco a little bit more too to help compensate for that. But other than that, I think I'll leave it here until that point. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. If you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.